Hi, we're here at SHRM 2025 here in San Diego. My name is Jocelyn King, and I'm the CEO and founder of VirgilHR. I'm here today with Jason Sheffield. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have an incredible background. Before we dig into it, what I'd really love for our audience is for you to just give a 60-second high-level review as best as you can of your experience.
Sure. I've worked in the benefits space now for about 2 decades. I started as an attorney, and I practiced for about 10 years, and then switched to consulting, and I've been a consultant now for about 15 years. I run a practice for a U.S. broker, a compliance practice that focuses on employee benefits consulting.
Employee benefits consulting. So who are you typically working with?
Mid-sized employers, anywhere from about 500 employees to about 3,000 employees. And we actually don't provide any service to the firm. Everything that we provide is consulting support that's client focused.
Okay. So why employee benefits law? Why'd you get into that?
I went to law school, and previously I was in law enforcement. And so I thought I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney, and I had like the Law and Order thing all planned out in my mind. And then I made a D in criminal law, which was the first time ever in my life that happened. So I was like, maybe I should rethink this a little bit. And I took a tax law course that was focused on employee benefits, and I got it. I understood the language. It made sense to me, and I've just stuck with it. And it's always been a great career.
That's incredible. And what's, I think, extra incredible too is the fact that it's something that made sense for you, because I think for many, many people, it doesn't. It's really hard to digest a lot of this information. So I'd love to touch a little more on that, because I think it'd be really interesting for our audience to hear a bit more about how they can apply at a practical level some of your takeaways to their day-to-day work.
Yeah.
So one thing that I thought was incredibly interesting about your background in particular on the consulting side was the leave piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to employee benefits. Obviously, there are so many changes going on at a state and local level. Why do you think that's happening?
There's a void right now. Whenever there's a vacuum, someone's going to fill it. Congress has been relatively silent on the issue of leave following the FMLA and the little bit of limited relief we got around COVID. The problem with COVID is that it introduced people to a new way of working and thinking. And it was very hard for people to go back to an office. And so they're struggling now more so than ever with work-life balance. And leave is kind of the common denominator there. It's what controls our work-life balance when we are working full-time. What access to leave programs do we have? How long do we have? Is that leave going to be paid or unpaid? All those nuances kind of make up your profile for what is going to be an acceptable employment experience. So I think leave is central to the employment experience now.
I would agree. And I think that, laws or no laws, employers need to be a little more innovative and generous with the leave that they are offering, especially when you're in states. For example, I'm in Florida. Mm-hmm. When you're in a state like Florida, that doesn't really have a whole lot going on.
Kind of a desert.
Yes.
Yeah.
How could, let's say it's your HR director in Florida, how could they implement some of the more innovative approaches that other states are taking in a state that really isn't doing a whole lot right now?
Florida's a great example, because what some of the conservative states have done is actually pass amendments to their insurance code that allow employers to purchase fully insured or self-funded insurance policies to fund paid leave programs. So even though the state doesn't allocate a paid leave program, and they haven't adopted one, they have put in place operations where an employer can get the necessary insurance to offer the benefit voluntarily. So that's a first step. And you see that a lot of times in the southern states and some of the central Midwestern states, where they're looking for kind of like a gap filler because they don't really have the laws on the books yet, even at the state or local level. So they'll go the route of doing just a paid insurance leave.
Where can somebody find information on that? Because I haven't heard of it, and that's benefits isn't my background, but I'm really curious where you'd find that type of information as an HR practitioner to try and implement some of that in your organization?
Research. It really comes down to research. We use probably 6 different research systems, but actually when I was preparing for this presentation and went back and looked at Florida and Alabama, those are both of the 2 most recent states to adopt that insurance mechanism. You have to go read the bills. there aren't even effective regulations on a lot of those laws yet. So it's really just going and finding the activity by their legislature, reading the bill, seeing what was adopted by the governor and what's in place, and then interpreting that. And to do that, you may need a consultant or an attorney to help you parse through it and come up with your action items and how you're going to actually kind of put it in play at your workforce or your workplace.
Interesting. And your organization, your consulting firm does something like that?
Yes, we provide consulting experience around kind of the range of employee benefit issues for sponsors. So it could be anything from like, how do you develop a HIPAA compliance program, like your policies, your procedures, your business associate agreements, kind of going through all of those boxes you've got to check, all the way over to like the mental health parity side or cybersecurity side, just kind of the range of employee benefit issues. And I think working with a broker, a lot of people complain about it, but it really is your best access to on-point subject matter expertise. A mid-sized employer doesn't have the financial resources to have all of that in-house.
Right.
It's enough to even have general counsel, much less a benefits counsel, retirement counsel, all those different organizational leads. So I think relying on a consultant is a great kind of gap fill there.
Yeah. So some practical takeaways here is doing research on these insurance, I don't know if you'd call them loopholes or just additions to the law.
Just mandates.
There we go, mandates. Yeah. And perhaps considering a consultant to help with some of the work. Now, do you think that is also practical for those smaller businesses out there that might have a more limited budget?
It is practical. I mean, there's all different types of insurance brokers. You've got national brokers, regional brokers, and then local brokers that only represent employers that have, between 5 and 100 employees. Because the landscape really is different from a compliance perspective, depending on the complexity of your organization. The more employees you have, the more types of HR operations you have, the more localities that you have the business operations set up in. That's when you start to get into the really complex leave issues, for example, because every state's got its own requirements, and then all these cities have their own requirements, and then the federal government has requirements. And so you've got to come up with these matrices, really. You have to analyze the laws and mandates at 3 or 4 different levels, and then put them into some kind of an actionable spreadsheet or get a vendor to help you with a compliance plan. It's really almost impossible right now for an employer of any size to manage employee benefits without outside expertise.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think that for especially those smaller companies and the mid-sized companies as well, using a broker would be a really great way of going about it, at least as a starting point.
It's a starting point. I mean, brokers sometimes get a bad rap because they're the middlemen. They're in between the insurance companies and the employer, and they're kind of taking the brunt from both sides, trying to negotiate, come up with the best alternative for all the parties. So they kind of work like mediators in a sense. But I think what you need to do is find a broker that you can have a good relationship with, that supports you on more than just renewal days. They support you throughout the year with open enrollment meetings, with doing education for your HR leadership and your HR team, with helping you with privacy and security compliance or leave compliance, and really just someone that's got a comprehensive compliance assuredness platform.
Okay, very interesting. Now, just kind of sticking to leave for a minute, where do you see this leave law landscape headed?
It's amazing watching it right now. It's evolving really at lightning speed. I mean, probably quicker than any other benefits issue I've seen evolve over the last few years. The next steps I think are going to be more focused on paid leave rather than unpaid leave. We've kind of conquered unpaid leave for now, where it's going to proliferate. So I think paid leave is the next kind of frontier. And then after that, it's starting to get into really specialty types of leave, like school leave. For scheduling conferences and PTO conferences and plays and things, or finding different strategies for leave based on lifestyle, like paternity leave, leave based on alternative lifestyle arrangements for transgender individuals, for gay and lesbian and bisexual individuals, like giving them access to the same traditional family planning activities and programs that your straight population has. That's really been a big motivator for employers in the last year.
Yeah, so something that I have found really interesting about California is the school literacy leave.
Yeah.
Right. As a parent, it's an opportunity to go to those conferences, to do the field trips. I don't know of any other state that does that.
Now there are, I think, 3 different states that have either proposed or passed school-related leave. Most of it's scheduling leave to allow, the ones I've seen are scheduling leave to allow parents to have flexible schedules. It doesn't dictate that they have to use it on school-related functions. It's got a list of activities that are in the range of what they anticipate. The other thing with this is it's really hard to enforce these laws. So the agencies, the insurance commissioners, the DOL, and then at the state level, the revenue agencies are trying to figure out how to make this practical and actionable. How do you take this law that's really ambiguous, or this insurance regulation that's very ambiguous as to what it applies to, and you roll it out to all these employers in the state and expect them to make good of it? And it's really challenging. A lot of the ordinances and the state statutes don't have regulations with them. So all we have is bill text or a commission text. So it's up to the employer to interpret and to apply, based on all the facts and circumstances, a good faith understanding of what the provisions provide.
I remember when Massachusetts first came out with their salary history ban, which was the first, I believe they were the first state to do that. I was earlier on in my career, and I called their office to ask, at the time the question was, hey, if that candidate is in Massachusetts, but we're in Maryland, do I need to comply with this law? Again, earlier on in my career. And they said, yes, if they're in Massachusetts, that's the law you have to comply with. But what was really helpful was actually speaking to them about the interpretation of the law itself. And I'm wondering, is that an opportunity for HR professionals with some of these mandates that are coming out or some of the laws that are being passed?
Perfect. I mean, that's a perfect way to get the information that you need. For example, you have the healthcare security ordinance in San Francisco, which has to do with getting healthcare to part-time employees of restaurants and hospitality industry and enterprises. And they actually do monthly webcasts that introduce employers to their program. They walk through the different requirements for reporting and filing and paying fees. And then they give you alternative remedies for how to handle disputes and negotiate with the agency. So having the access to the webcasts, the resources, some of the more complex municipal operations like Chicago and New York, they have guides and regulations. So you're not struggling so much. It's when you get into like the city of Emeryville or something like that where they don't have regulations. They don't have like a governing body other than a county or a state commission or local commission. So they really don't have the resources. I think that using whatever is at your fingertips is the way to go. Calling agencies is always great if you get the right person. But if you get the right person, they can give you a wealth of opportunity and information because they have so much at their fingertips that you don't have access to.
Absolutely. So you'd mentioned to me earlier that you'd held two presentations yesterday here at SHRM. Would you mind sharing a little bit about those?
Sure. Yesterday we had two programs. The first one was a cybersecurity presentation for health plan administrators and sponsors. So we focused on what are your HIPAA obligations as a covered entity? What do you have to do to be compliant with your privacy and security regulations and legislation? And then we kind of take it to the next step and apply it in the context of cybersecurity specifically, so that we're looking at things like what are the types of malware variants that are attacking employer plans? What kind of theft are we seeing? Is there, the incidence of ransomware has gotten really high. So how to respond, how to identify that, respond to it. Just teaching employers practical solutions for how to deal with this really quickly evolving issue. So we did that in the morning, and then in the afternoon we did a session on leave, where we talked about specifically state and local leave ordinances, state statutes, and kind of how that leads into federal jurisdiction. And so what does the preemption look like there? What are the legal issues for accessibility and accountability for employers? And what does the value proposition for employees mean when they look at these different types of leave that they have access to?
Yeah. I have a couple questions about your presentation, but you kind of reminded me of another one, and that's the federal piece, right? Why do you think the federal government is being so silent on some of these leave topics?
It's hard. This is a tricky one. We have an administration now in place that is very spontaneous. We don't get a lot of forethought on what types of rulemaking may be coming or what type of legislation may be coming. And we have a congressional body, we have the Senate and the House that are really locked in right now. The minority party has minority in both chambers. So unless you have a lot of momentum from the president, the Senate, and the House, all Republicans basically, on one central key issue or theme, you're not going to see movement on it unless the states or the cities take it up. Well, the problem with that is that leave is generally seen to not be an employer-friendly topic. I mean, an employer-friendly topic. It's really focused on employee rights. So outside of what happened with COVID, we haven't seen a lot of movement. There have been family paid leave laws that have been proposed in Congress the last 3 sessions, and none of them have made it out of committee for a vote. So it's just a waiting game, I think.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of them, which I think is so practical, especially after COVID, is eliminating that 50-mile,
Right.
75-mile
70
radius
miles. Yeah.
rule. And that was kind of bounced around a little bit, but I don't think it's gone anywhere.
The Department of Labor did come out with some interpretive guidance around how to assess that 75-mile radius with remote workers. Like, where is their work site? Where are they doing their work? Who are they doing their work for? Where are they reporting? Because as an employer, frankly, it's kind of impossible to monitor compliance with that rule when you have employees working at home across the country.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know how many miles they are from a work site? It's impossible. So I think some of the work site rules that the DOL's put out, some of the clarifications and interpretations help with that issue a lot.
Interesting. Yeah. So definitely something that could be checked out on the DOL website.
Absolutely. And what you'll find now is that a lot of these issues that we have kind of like partial federal guidance on, but not really a complete picture, we see the agencies trying to fill the gaps with agency rulemaking. With the Supreme Court, kind of the way it is right now, they're striking down a lot of agency rulemaking, but the agencies still are the ones that are in the best position to put affirmative guidance out there. So always start with the agency that's in charge of enforcing the law or regulation, and then start looking to Congress, then start looking at the state, then go to your local level.
Okay. Now, just to go back to the cybersecurity presentation that you'd done, what type of practical tips did you talk about that you think might be helpful for our audience to hear a little more about?
The basics. Time and again when we do this presentation, we remind employers to focus on the basics. Use dual-factor authentication. Make sure that you turn off the ability of your employees to shut down automatic updates on their computer. I do a lot of public speaking and a lot of events and roundtables and stuff, and it never fails. I'll turn on my computer to get started, and it says automatic update in place or in progress. So just stand by and wait. And you'll be standing there with a room full of people and your computer's slowly updating. But I tell people not to turn that off because half the time those are security updates.
Right.
And they're timely. You've got Google, Microsoft, Apple pushing out these security updates all the time. So I think keeping that on, making sure that your computers automatically lock as quickly as possible, and in no instance, no more than 3 minutes. A lot of firms give employees the opportunity to turn that feature off. So we kind of say don't do that. The dual-factor authentication is great. Having complex passwords, using phrases instead of passwords can help. And then having contact information for your local FBI field office is a big piece of this because they have cybersecurity experts in every field office. So when you have an attack or you have a ransomware event or something like that, you don't know who's attacking you, and you don't know for what reason, you don't know what they want. You might not even know how to acquire cryptocurrency to pay them. So it's a really complex endeavor, and you have a clock ticking down. You can call the FBI field office and they can tell you, this is the agent that attacked you. This is how you get it off your computer and your network. This is how you identify if it's proliferated throughout your organization. So propagated additional instances. So just having those basic contacts, having an initial incident response plan in place where you contact law enforcement, you check passwords, you shut down your network, just having those pieces in place, I think is actionable and easy.
Yeah, practical tips, absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure. This is a topic that I don't have a lot of familiarity about, and I think that there are a lot of generalists out there who don't as well. So having these practical tips and the guidance just based on your experience has been incredible.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a good time.
Thanks.